Buonasera, que Carlos Tirtate, which means hello and welcome to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today I'm going to teach you how to make dolmades sto furno me domata. That basically means roasted grape leaves that are stuffed with, I'm stuffing them with a meat, rice, and herb filling, but you could totally leave these vegetarian. They're going to be roasted in the oven in a beautiful light tomato sauce. It's simple to make, delicious, tastes even better the next day if you ask me. And they're elegant enough for a dinner party, but they're also good to feed your family on any day of the week. Let's start. So I'm making a double batch today because we're a family of 7 and leftovers are always looked forward to. They're always a blessing when I open the fridge and I have something for the next day for us to have for lunch or something like that. The post is only going to have half of this batch. The recipe is going to be underneath here, but we're going to start by chopping up the onions. So I have 2 onions here. I'm going to finely chop them and I'm going to cook them with some olive oil over medium heat until they're nice and soft and golden, which should take about 7-8 minutes or so. So while the onions are cooking, I'm going to thinly slice these scallions here. I have about 8 scallions, and I'm going to cut them all the way down to the white parts, and I've already washed them. Once the onions are nice and soft, they don't have to be golden, just soft, then go ahead and add the scallions and just cook them for about 2 minutes over medium-high heat just so they can soften a little bit. Now at this point, it's up to you. If you want to keep it vegetarian, then obviously we're going to skip the meat. I have ground beef here and I'm using 2 pounds because, like I said, I am making a double batch. But if you weren't going to use the beef, then at this point you would put the rice in, and you could also put some pine nuts and walnuts. If you want to do a little bit of a sweet savory combination, you could also throw in some cranberries or some raisins. That would be great too. Or you could leave it plain with the raisins and the herbs. And I did do a plain dolmades recipe, and I'll post that up in the card section so that way you can take a look at it, and I'll also link it in the blog post. But I'm going to put some meat in these because kids over here, they love the meat. So I'm going to add 2 pounds of ground beef, and I'm going to season it with a little bit of salt. I'll do 2 teaspoons of salt and some black pepper. I'll do half a teaspoon of black pepper, but you can put as much as you like. Then I'm going to break it up and let it just brown a little bit. It's really not going to brown, it's going to cook a little bit, cook through. Once all of the pinkness goes away, then we're going to go in and add a little bit of tomato, pureed tomato. You can grate 1 fresh tomato and put it in here, or 2 if you're doubling the batch like I am, or you can do half a can of pureed canned tomatoes. You can do crushed tomatoes, whole tomatoes. I like to puree them because everybody around here likes a very smooth tomato in their sauce. I have some tomato in the bag here because I do freeze leftover canned tomatoes so we don't waste anything. So 2 ladlefuls should be perfect. And I'm just going to cook this down until the meat is cooked through. So it takes about 10 to 12 minutes for the meat to cook. At this point, I have 1 cup of Basmati rice. You can use, this is long grain rice. You could use short grain rice if that's what you have on hand or if that's what you really like. I'm also going to squeeze a little bit of lemon juice in here. The lemon juice really adds depth of flavor, and we like to season every step of the way. I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt for the rice, and I'm also going to add a cup of water. So I'm just going to bring this to a boil, then I'm going to reduce the heat to a medium-low, and I'm going to let it cook for about 7-8 minutes or until all of the water is absorbed. The rice is not going to be fully cooked, but we want it that way because it is going to continue to cook in the oven, and then we're going to take it off the heat and add all of the herbs in. While this is cooking, I'm going to finally chop up a big bunch of parsley and some mint, and I don't have fresh dill, but I do have dry dill, so I'm just going to put a teaspoon of dill in here, a teaspoon or 2. You can use your favorite herbs in this, whatever they are. So once you're done mixing the whole rice and beef mixture, then go ahead and give it a taste and see if the seasoning is right. It should be good if you seasoned along the way. If not, you can go ahead and season a little bit more with some salt and pepper, or you could even adjust the taste of the herbs. You could even throw in some dried oregano if you want. But that's done. I'm going to set it aside so it can cool while I prepare the grape leaves. Now, I don't have a grapevine in my backyard, so I buy grape leaves ready-made at the supermarket. They're sold in the Mediterranean section of the supermarket, or if you're lucky enough to have a Mediterranean specialty food store nearby, they'll have them, and they sell them in jars. and they're already boiled and they're stored in a brine. So because they're stored in a brine, this is not sponsored, but this company is really good, Orlando. If you can find it, this is what I use, and I really like it. And like I said, you're gonna have to drain out all of that brine and rinse them really well under cold water. And then the final step is to cut off these hard stems over here. So you can do that with a pair of kitchen scissors. So now it's time to fill the leaves. Now you want to lay them vein side up and shiny side down. So put them all on your work surface in front of you. Try to lay as many as you can up front. Use the nice big fresh leaves first, the ones that aren't damaged, and fill as many as you can. You're going to put a heaping teaspoonful in the center. Then you're going to roll up the bottom and the sides in, and then you're going to roll up, leaving them tight but not too tight, so that way they have room to breathe, because they are going to expand a little bit as they cook, the rice that is. Now if you have some leaves that are ripped like this and smaller, you can definitely use those. If you're only making half the batch, then you can just gather up all the torn and small leaves to line the bottom of the pan. That's going to be fine too. But if you're running low and you want to fill as many as you can up, go ahead and take, you see how this one is torn in the center? I'm just going to take this one and another small one and just kind of put it, overlap them to kind of create one big one. You see what I did? And then you're going to take a spoonful of the mixture, put it down, and then you're going to roll up just like we did before from the bottom. Then you're going to tuck the sides in, and it looks perfect. So I'm going to keep rolling these up until I run out of leaves and filling. Then we're going to move on to the next step. So I made 31 dolmadakia, stuffed 31 grape leaves. I do have a little bit of filling left over. Now I'm just going to cook this a little bit longer with some water. Maybe I'll put, I don't know, a quarter cup of water in here and let it cook about 10 more minutes until the rice is fully cooked. And we're going to eat that. That's fine. You can take this filling and you could fill it in any vegetables you want. If you have any left over, you could put it in, what are they called? Mushrooms, bell peppers, tomatoes, whatever. It works in everything. It's so flavorful and delicious. So before we move on, you can cook these in a pot over a stove like we've done so many times with dolmadakia. Or this time, I really enjoy them the way they taste in the oven. It just takes the level of flavor up a couple of notches. I'm going to take all of these leftover leaves and I'm just going to line the bottom of the pan. That is good. And then I'm going to transfer them to the baking pan. You can put these in a 9 by 13 inch baking pan. This is a 10-inch square baking pan, but I also have a 9 by 13 inch pan on the side because these are not all going to fit in here. And you want to put them in nice and snug so that way they don't open up while they're roasting. Now the last component of this is the sauce. This is a very easy sauce to make. I have two 15-ounce cans of tomatoes that I've pureed in here. They're just plain tomatoes, unseasoned. We're just going to season them ourselves. I'm going to season with a little bit of salt. I'm going to do a little pinch of sugar, like a quarter teaspoon or so, some black pepper. And I have some dried oregano over here that I've dried from my backyard. You can add some mint in here if you wanted to, or even some basil. And I'm just going to mix this all up really quickly. And of course, I forgot about the olive oil. I'm going to add about 1/3 of a cup of olive oil in here. I'm just going to mix this up really quickly. Now, it would have been better to do this in a bowl, but why dirty something else? I'm going to give it a little taste. It needs a little bit more sugar because that tomato sauce tends to be very acidic. And I'm also going to put another healthy pinch of salt. Let's give it another taste. Oh, that's so good. Now I'm just going to distribute this equally between the two pans. And I'm also going to rinse this out with a little bit of water, about 1/2 cup of water. And I'm going to drizzle just a tiny bit more olive oil on top. So I'm going to cover these pans with aluminum foil, and I'm going to bake these for 20 minutes covered. Then I'm going to uncover them, and I'm going to bake them for another 20 minutes or until they're beautifully roasted and they're fork tender on the inside. The rice and everything is going to be perfectly cooked. I'll show you what they look like as soon as they come out. The dolmades came out of the oven, and I let them rest for about 10 minutes so that way they can just settle down a little bit and absorb the juices that were released. The tomato sauce is nice and roasted on top, and they smell absolutely fantastic. It is time to take a bite. That tastes so good. That is so delicious. I'm used to having a very lemony tasting grape leaf. This with the tomato just gives it such a nice hearty goodness to it. It just takes it to the next level, gives it a completely different flavor, especially when it's roasted. I just love the taste that these have. I did test them in the pot too, and they came out pretty good. They're much lighter in the pot, but the flavor that the oven gives once you roast it, you just can't get it in the pot. Of course, if you don't want to turn on your oven, if it's super hot where you're at, and you'd rather just quickly cook them in the pot, that's fine too. All of those directions are going to be on the blog post on dimitrasdishes.com. The recipe is underneath this video in the description box, so make sure you check it out. It has all the measurements, the time, and everything that you need to make these delicious grape leaves and put them on your table for your family and for your loved ones. Sharing is definitely caring, and there's no better way to show love to the people that you care about than to prepare a delicious meal for them like this one. I would serve this with a nice salad and some tzatziki sauce, or even some plain Greek yogurt like they do in Greece. I think you guys are going to love this one. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And if you want to learn how to make more stuffed grape leaves recipes, you're going to want to click over here, and I will see you right over there. Yes, us.